WD-40 is not just a multi-purpose lubricant, but also an extremely effective weapon for removing rust from kitchen knives and tools. When sprayed in a thin layer onto oxidized metal surfaces, WD-40 penetrates deep into the rust, softening it and making it easier to wipe or scrub away. Thanks to its moisture-displacing properties and ability to create a thin protective film, it not only restores the shine of knives and scissors, but also helps prevent rust from returning, significantly extending the lifespan of kitchen tools. However, my WD-40 cans are completely empty, so before dealing with the rust, I have to solve another problem: reviving these exhausted cans. Instead of throwing them away, I will reuse the empty WD-40 containers. I use a handheld cutter to make a clean cut around the body of the WD-40 can, splitting the metal shell into two separate halves. The metal layer is thin but fairly hard, so I worked slowly and kept the cutting blade steady to ensure a straight cut without warping or denting the surface. From items that seem like trash, they can be reborn into new tools that are compact, practical, and truly useful, perfectly matching the spirit of smart and economical recycling. Before shortening the two halves of the can, I use a marker to draw a clear guideline around the metal body as a reference. This line helped me precisely control the section to be cut, ensuring that both halves ended up with equal and balanced heights after processing. Next, I remove the entire tube and spray nozzle from the cap. I gently twisted and pulled straight to separate each part cleanly, avoiding any breakage or deformation of the plastic joints. After finishing the markings, I used scissors to cut along the guideline to remove the excess metal. I worked in short sections, cutting slowly and steadily to follow the marked line closely and keep the edge straight and clean. Once the excess section was fully removed, the two halves of the can became shorter and more balanced, ready for the next processing step. I then smoothed the freshly cut edges using sandpaper. The sharp, rough metal edges were gradually refined, and the gritty feeling disappeared as the surface became smoother under my fingers. I sanded in a consistent direction, focusing on corners and raised spots to remove any remaining burrs, making the cut edge much safer to handle. After finishing, the metal edge was smooth, clean, and neat, ready for the next assembly or use step. Next, I use a marker to mark fixed points around the cap's rim, clearly dotting each spot as a drill center. Each point was evenly spaced so that when drilling, the holes would align straight and remain balanced, ensuring a sturdy and visually neat assembly later. After drilling the marked holes on the upper half, I used a file to smooth the edges of each hole. I worked the file evenly, gently rotating around the rim of each hole to remove any remaining burrs and sharp edges. I tried fitting the two halves of the body together, but found it a bit difficult because the upper half was slightly too wide. To fix this, I decided to make a vertical cut on the upper half, from the edge down toward the base, slightly reducing the circumference. After cutting, the upper half became more flexible, able to compress slightly when slid onto the other half, making it easier to join the two pieces snugly. This ensured that both halves fit securely while maintaining the overall shape. Once the two halves were securely joined and the holes smooth, the overall assembly closely resembled a homemade mini alcohol stove. The hollow metal body served as a chamber, while the drilled holes on the cap acted like vents, evoking the shape of a traditional alcohol stove. With its compact size, shiny metal surface, and tightly fitted components, it carried a rustic yet refined look, like a complete DIY version, ready for small experiments or as a unique decorative piece. Next, I prepared an additional small wooden board or metal frame to serve as a stove stand, where a pot could be placed for cooking. The stand was designed so that its bars or slots fit snugly around the stove's body, providing enough clearance for flame or heat from below to distribute evenly. Next, I inserted 3 nuts into the holes previously drilled on the stove body. They would serve as anchors for bolts during assembly, ensuring that all the components fit tightly together without any looseness. To keep the nuts from loosening or shifting when tightening the bolts, I used super glue to secure each nut in place. I applied a small amount of glue to the contact surface of the nut, pressed it lightly onto the metal body, and let it dry for a few minutes. Once the glue hardened, the nuts were firmly fixed, ensuring that any bolts inserted would stay secure without wobbling. I inserted the bolt straight into the hole, turning it gently so that it engaged with the threads inside the nut. When tightened, the bolt and nut formed a secure connection, firmly holding the stove body components together. After attaching the 3 nuts and tightening the bolts, the stove frame became sturdy and stable. At this point, I could easily place a pot on top without worrying about wobbling or tipping. The evenly spaced nuts ensured the pot stood firmly, distributing the weight evenly and providing a secure feel while cooking. Next, I used cotton string as the wick for the alcohol stove. I cut each piece to the appropriate length, then threaded it through the holes drilled in the stove body, making sure the ends of the wick reach the alcohol chamber inside. The soft cotton absorbs the alcohol well, allowing the flame to burn evenly and steadily when lit. After threading the wicks through the holes, I adjusted them so that each wick sat properly in the alcohol chamber, ensuring full contact with the liquid fuel. This setup allowed the flames to ignite evenly across all wicks, producing a consistent and stable burn. Next, I poured alcohol into the chamber inside the stove body. I poured slowly, watching the level carefully to ensure it didn't overflow, and only covered the lower portion of the wicks. After filling the chamber with alcohol, I dabbed a little alcohol onto the tops of the wicks and the upper part of the stove to help ignite it more quickly. The amount was just enough for the flame to catch immediately without causing overflow or any safety hazard. I carefully lit the stove by bringing a flame close to the wicks. Almost instantly, the cotton absorbed the alcohol and ignited, producing a steady blue-orange flame. I watched closely to ensure the fire burned evenly across all wicks, adjusting slightly if needed to maintain a stable and controlled flame. The stove now functioned exactly as intended, ready for cooking or small experiments. Instead of being discarded as waste, they have now become a compact, safe, and ready-to-use DIY tool, proving that with a bit of creativity and patience, seemingly useless items can be transformed into practical objects for everyday life. I carefully placed a small pot on top of the stove stand, ensuring it sat evenly over the flame. The evenly spaced supports held the pot securely, allowing the heat to distribute uniformly across the bottom. The compact alcohol stove heats up remarkably fast, bringing water to a boil in a surprisingly short time. Thanks to the concentrated flame and the snug contact between the pot and the heat source, the energy transfers efficiently, allowing small amounts of water to reach a rolling boil within minutes. Its quick heating capability makes it not only practical for experiments, but also genuinely useful for rapid cooking or warming liquids. With the stove fully assembled and functioning, the project stands as a perfect example of practical DIY ingenuity. From empty WD-40 cans and simple materials, a compact, safe, and efficient alcohol stove has been created, ready to heat, cook, or serve as a unique decorative piece. It demonstrates that with patience, creativity, and careful craftsmanship, even discarded items can be transformed into something both functional and inspiring.